Welcome back to Christian Questions on WXLM. Today we're talking about, does God see women as second-class citizens? Give us a call if you'd like to participate. It's 860-442-9956. That's 442-WXLM.
And Vic, we had a terrific question come in just before the break from John. And he was basically saying, the world is different now than it was then. And you had the providers and protector kind of thing role for the women at home. They would be at home taking care of the children all day long and nurturing them and helping them grow up and all of that. But now you have two providers. So now what do you do? I mean, all of this that we're talking about sounds great, but the point is, does it really work? Is it possible for it to work? And I am not even going to attempt to answer this because I have a woman sitting right across from me here. And what
you're just afraid you'll get in trouble.
Well, that too, but but see, this is important to get a female's perspective because Vic, you've been a student of the Bible for a long time, and when you were raising your children and they were very small, you were a student of the Bible, correct?
Correct.
And
yes.
These principles were important to you.
Very important.
So how does it work? Can it work?
It does work, but it's hard. But yes, it definitely works because what's changed are circumstances, but not the principles. The principles are still there. And it works given a few things. I mean, in America, I would say the vast majority of us can do without much more than we do without. And we see things as necessities that really aren't. And when my children were little, I did not work outside the home. And it was not easy, especially because when you're the one home, that's when you have the time to look around the house and say, oh, we need a new couch, and oh, we need a new washing machine, and oh, we need to paint, and all these things that cost money, or the car, or whatever it be. When you're at work, you're too busy to think about those things. I find that very interesting. Now that I work outside the home, I don't have time to, it doesn't bother me near as much as the things that weren't done. But we opted for that choice, and we're blessed greatly by it. But even now that I'm working outside the home, my attitude, and I still want to be a keeper of the home, and I still want to have that attitude of supporting my husband in his decisions and being a team player, but more as the support role, not the leading role.
All right, and you said a whole lot in those few comments there in terms of taking the principle and still applying the godly principle that's so clearly laid out for us in a context that's very different. Mm-hmm. And back then in those days, women didn't have a work outside the home and the second job and all of that kind of thing. And I imagine there are many, many, many of us who have the experience of needing two incomes.
Right.
And one of the points you made was, well, sometimes, how did you say it during the break? Reducing your...
There's two ways you can do it. You can increase your income, or you can decrease your means.
Okay, you can decrease your income...
Increase your income,
or decrease your needs.
Your needs, right.
And oftentimes what we think we need, when we really truly analyze it, many times is a want.
Oh, try walking. This is an experiment. You're sitting at home and you think you don't need anything. Go walk around the mall. And all of a sudden you realize all the things you need. Not that you want, but all of a sudden they become needs. It's kind of and our society is full of the advertisements that make us think we need something.
And we're going to get to this call in just 1 second here, but the other thing, and actually John is back on the line, one other thing you mentioned is, okay, what about single parent households? And that's another issue that needs to be dealt with, and we'll get to that. But let's get John back on with us here.
Welcome back to Christian Questions, John.
How you doing? You just mentioned a very, very good point, is when it kind of backs up my question. You just said you kind of like follow your husband and in his beliefs, and you kind of like support him.
Well, yeah,
I didn't hear you say he supports you.
Okay, well, go ahead, Vic.
Support is a tricky word because he supports me emotionally. He definitely supports me more financially. I just kind of do my little part to help out. But I think the relevant part is that we support each other. But when it comes down to, you've got to have one leader. You can't have too many chiefs. So if we disagree, yes, I go with what he desires, but not in terms of my belief or going against what I think the Lord has in store for me either.
Right. Now, as I was saying, is most older, and I'll say older, but older, because you have your more modern Christian families,
Mm-hmm.
then you have your old school.
Mm-hmm.
It's the old school that scares me. Because, I mean, for example, my girlfriend's sister, she's, the one I'm looking for is a submissive.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, and it kind of backs up, like nowadays, it actually hurts a family. Because, I mean, you have someone that's submissive and one is more ruling. That submissive person, deep down, they're almost like bottling it all up. And I think that's where a lot of problems are in the families.
All right,
Because they're trying to fit this role because the Bible said so. Not saying it's wrong, but nowadays you can't help look around and say, why am I being so submissive?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
No, and you're bringing up actually a very good point here. All right, John, we're gonna let you go here, but we're gonna address that part of the question again. Boy, you ask good questions. Keep it up.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
All right, Vic. So let's get on to that thing there. Okay. The idea of being submissive, and John makes a very good point, because if you remember, when we started the program, some of the first words that we started with were, this is the age of personal choice, personal preference, and personal comfort. Okay? It's all about me. And when we get into a situation where we're saying you should be submissive,
Right.
that takes the me right out of it, and that's what we're all programmed to be focusing on. What do you do with that? Do you feel like it's all bottled up and like,
Absolutely not.
Why?
Absolutely not.
What's wrong with you?
Because honestly, I started out, and it's more now because of, there are moments, I guess it ebbs and flows with my relationship with my husband, that I really am submissive to him because of, I want to be. But there's many times when it's difficult that I don't think of myself as submissive to him. I think of myself as submissive to Christ. Because the scripture talks about that we do it like Christ in the church. And if I don't feel like being submissive to my husband, I can then make myself do it because I say, this is for God. This is bigger than just my husband. And I want to be clothed with humility. And I want to not care about the little things. I want God to be all important in my life. I want Jesus to be my number one role model. And that's where I focus on.
All right, and going back to that Ephesians scripture, remember it says, wives be in subjection, but husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. And that's that benevolent love that we were talking about before. And again, I'm going to speak now from the standpoint of a husband. My wife and I are in the same kind of situation as you and your husband. Mm-hmm. When we were raising our children when they were small, it was very, very difficult. I'm telling you, it was difficult. Right. Financially, we were strapped for a number of years, but she didn't work outside of the home. She does now, and it's easier. It's certainly much easier. But those days when she and I'm not proud of this, but when she wanted to take the kids out to Friendlies, they would split the little kids' meal.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
There was, and if they got an ice cream, it was like hoo-hoo.
Oh, and Sunday dinner was great because you go over to the parents and get a real
and
meal.
Load up.
That's right.
But the idea of that submission is important.